Admiral Zexathara stood on the bridge of the Sovereign Decimator, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. 300 warships stretched before him in perfect formation, each one a masterpiece of Zarathi engineering. The fleet represented the combined military might of 17 conquered worlds, armed with weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been breached. "Status report," he commanded, his forearms clasped behind his back in the traditional pose of Zarathi authority. "All ships reporting ready." "Admiral," came the crisp response from his tactical officer. "Long-range sensors have confirmed the target system. Third planet from the star, primitive civilization. They call themselves humans and their world Earth." Zexthara's mandibles clicked in amusement. Another backward species that would learn the price of existing in Zarathi space. For 3,000 years, his people had swept across the galaxy like a tide of inevitable conquest. Every species they encountered faced the same choice: submit or be exterminated. Most chose submission after witnessing the fate of those who resisted. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their scaled hands dancing across holographic controls. The Zarathi had perfected the art of conquest through overwhelming force and psychological warfare. Their ships were designed not just to destroy but to inspire terror. The Sovereign Decimator alone was 15 kilometers long, bristling with plasma cannons that could reduce a city to ash in seconds. Intelligence reports indicate they have achieved basic spaceflight. The tactical officer continued. Primitive chemical rockets, a few orbital stations. No energy shields, no plasma weaponry. Their largest vessels appear to be cargo haulers with minimal defensive capabilities. "How disappointing," Zexathara mused. "I was hoping for at least a token resistance." The crew grows restless without proper combat. He turned to face the massive viewport, watching stars streak past as they approached their destination. "Estimated time to target?" 6 rotations, Admiral. "Should we prepare the standard intimidation protocols?" Zexthara considered this. The intimidation protocols involved broadcasting images of previous conquests, showing potential enemies exactly what awaited them if they chose to resist. Cities burning, populations fleeing in terror, proud civilizations reduced to scattered refugees. It was psychological warfare at its finest, often causing enemy governments to surrender before the first shot was fired. "No," he decided. "Let's make this interesting. We'll arrive unannounced and begin with a demonstration of our capabilities. Destroy one of their cities from orbit, then offer them the choice. Fear is more effective when it comes without warning." The crew exchanged glances of anticipation. This was what they lived for. The moment when another species realized the futility of resistance against the Zarathi Empire. Some civilizations tried to negotiate, offering tribute or technology in exchange for their freedom. Others attempted to flee, scattering to distant star systems only to be hunted down later. A brave few actually fought back, though their resistance never lasted more than a few days. Commander Veltar, Zexathara's second-in-command, approached with a data tablet. "Admiral, we've completed our analysis of their technology level. They appear to be in the early stages of nuclear capability, though their weapons are crude compared to our standards. No evidence of faster-than-light travel or advanced metallurgy." "Fascinating," Zexathara said, though he sounded bored. "Another species that discovered fire before wisdom. They'll make adequate slaves once we've broken their spirit." The Zarathi had a well-established system for integrating conquered populations. The brightest minds were recruited into their research divisions, working on projects that would further the Empire's dominance. The strongest bodies were put to work in mining operations on hostile worlds. The rest were relocated to agricultural colonies, feeding the ever-growing war machine. As the fleet continued its approach, automated systems began their work. Long-range scanners mapped every satellite, every space station, every military installation on the human homeworld. The data flowed into massive computers that calculated optimal strike patterns and identified key targets. Nothing was left to chance. The Zarathi had conquered too many worlds to make amateur mistakes. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving transmissions from the target system. Multiple frequencies, various languages. They appear to be primitive entertainment broadcasts and data exchanges. Monitor them," Zexathara ordered. "I want to understand what manner of creatures we're dealing with." He had learned long ago that studying a species' communications could reveal weaknesses to exploit. Fear, greed, tribal rivalries. Every civilization had pressure points that could be used against them. The tactical display updated as they drew closer to the Sol system. Earth hung like a blue-green jewel against the darkness, seemingly peaceful and unaware of the doom approaching from the void. Its single moon orbited silently, marked by what appeared to be primitive landing sites. A few space stations dotted the orbital plane, tiny specks of metal that would be swept away like dust before the Zarathi advance. Zexithara allowed himself a moment of philosophical reflection. Once, his own people had been like these humans, young, naive, believing themselves alone in the universe. That innocence had been shattered when the previous galactic empire had come for them. But where other species had broken under that pressure, the Zarathi had adapted, learned, and eventually surpassed their conquerors. Now they were the ones bringing civilization to the galaxy, one conquest at a time. All ships maintain formation, he commanded as they entered the outer system. Prepare for combat deployment. We'll show these humans the price of existing in our galaxy. The fleet moved like a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction, each ship taking its assigned position. Soon the inhabitants of Earth would look up at their sky and see the end of their independence written in fire across the stars. It would be glorious. Director Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display in the buried command center beneath NORAD, her coffee growing cold as she watched the impossible data stream across multiple screens. Hundreds of massive objects had appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. Confirm the readings, she ordered. Though she knew her team had already checked 3 times, the objects were too large, too organized, too obviously artificial to be anything natural. Dr. Martinez, the facility's lead astronomer, looked up from his workstation with barely controlled panic in his eyes. Ma'am, these readings are off the charts. The largest ship is over 15 kilometers long. They're all emitting energy signatures we've never seen before. Chen felt her stomach drop. For 30 years, she had run the Deep Space Monitoring Division, a classified program tasked with watching for exactly this scenario. Politicians had called it a waste of money. Scientists had dismissed it as paranoid fantasy. But she had always known this day would come. Humanity was too young, too noisy, too obvious to remain hidden forever. Estimated time to Earth orbit? She asked, forcing her voice to remain steady. At current velocity, approximately 18 hours, came the response from Lieutenant Colonel Williams, the military liaison. Ma'am, I need to notify the Pentagon immediately. Chen nodded, her mind racing through protocols that had never been tested outside of simulations. Do it, but keep this compartmentalized for now. I want confirmation on their intentions before we trigger a global panic. The massive screens around the command center showed various angles of the approaching fleet. Each ship was a work of terrifying beauty, all sharp angles and glowing energy conduits. They moved with purpose and precision that spoke of advanced technology and military discipline. Ma'am, Dr. Martinez called out, we're detecting scanning beams. They're mapping our entire system. Every satellite, every station, every piece of debris larger than a baseball. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't first contact or a peaceful exploration mission. This was reconnaissance for invasion. The methodical way they were cataloging Earth's defenses told her everything she needed to know about their intentions. Her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted call from the Secretary of Defense. Within minutes, she was briefing the highest levels of government on humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. And it wasn't going well. How certain are you that their intentions are hostile? Asked President Morrison over the secure video link. Mr. President, they're conducting military-grade reconnaissance of our defenses while approaching in battle formation. This isn't a diplomatic mission. The president's face was grim. What are our options? Chen had been dreading this question. Honestly, sir, our conventional military capabilities are essentially useless against technology this advanced. However, we do have some assets they might not be aware of. For decades, black-budget programs had been preparing for this possibility. Project Prometheus had reverse-engineered recovered materials of unknown origin. Project Looking Glass had developed theoretical weapons based on exotic physics. Project Aegis had constructed hidden installations throughout the solar system, disguised as routine space infrastructure. Can we communicate with them? Asked the Secretary of Defense. We're trying, sir, but they haven't responded to any of our transmissions. They seem content to ignore us while they complete their scan. On the displays, the alien fleet had spread into a more aggressive formation. Long-range sensors showed weapons systems powering up across multiple ships. Whatever these beings were planning, they would make their move soon. "Ma'am," interrupted Sergeant Torres from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission. It's not directed at us. It appears to be internal fleet communications." Chen hurried over to the station.
"Can we decode it?"
"The AI is working on it now. The mathematical structure suggests a complex language, but there are patterns we can identify." Minutes passed in tense silence as quantum computers worked to crack the alien communication protocols. When the first partial translation appeared on screen, Chen felt her blood run cold. Intimidation protocols. Demonstration of capabilities. Destroy one of their cities. Offer them the choice. The fragments painted a terrifying picture. These weren't explorers or even simple conquerors. They were exterminators who had done this before, many times, to many worlds. "Get me the president again," Chen ordered. "We need to implement the Samson Protocol immediately." The Samson Protocol was humanity's last resort, a plan so desperate that previous administrations had hoped it would never be necessary. Hidden throughout the solar system were weapons that violated several international treaties, devices that could theoretically damage even the most advanced alien technology. But first, they needed to buy time. Chen turned to her communications team. "Open a channel to the fleet. All frequencies, maximum power. It's time for humanity to make its voice heard." The message that went out was simple but defiant. "This is Earth. We know why you're here. We know what you've done to other worlds. We're not like the others." For the first time since detecting the fleet, Chen allowed herself a grim smile. These aliens expected to find a primitive species cowering in fear. Instead, they would discover that humans had spent their entire history preparing for war, even against impossible odds. The fleet's response came 12 minutes later, not in words, but in action. Energy signatures spiked across their formation as weapon systems reached full power. The demonstration was about to begin. Chen activated emergency protocols that would disperse humanity's leadership to hidden bunkers around the globe. Whatever happened in the next few hours would determine whether Earth's children would live as free beings or slaves to an alien empire. She looked around the command center one last time, then gave the order that would change everything. "Activate all Prometheus sites. Prepare for immediate implementation of the Samson Protocol, and someone get me Admiral Fletcher. It's time to see if our secret weapons actually work." Admiral Zexithara studied the intercepted human transmission with growing irritation. The primitive species had somehow detected their approach and was attempting to communicate. Worse, their message carried an undertone of defiance that he found personally insulting. "We're not like the others," he read aloud, his mandibles clicking in disdain. How many times have I heard that exact phrase? Do they all believe they're special? Commander Veltar manipulated the tactical display, highlighting Earth's defensive positions. "Sir, our scans show they have primitive orbital platforms and a few armed spacecraft. Nothing that poses a threat to even our smallest vessels." "Then why do I feel uneasy?" Zexithara mused, studying the data feeds. Something about this system felt different, though he couldn't identify what. The humans had achieved spaceflight recently, yet their orbital infrastructure showed signs of advanced engineering that didn't match their apparent technological level. "Perhaps it's their radio emissions," suggested the intelligence officer. "Their communications network is far more sophisticated than expected for their development stage. And there are gaps in our scans, several installations that appear to be civilian but block our sensors." Zexithara's unease deepened. In 3 millennia of conquest, he had learned to trust his instincts. The primitive species that fought hardest were often those that seemed weakest at first glance. Still, orders were orders, and the Empire demanded another demonstration of their power. "Target selection?" he asked. "The largest population center on the primary continent. They call it New York City. 7 million inhabitants, significant economic value. Its destruction should convince them to surrender immediately." The Admiral nodded and was about to give the firing order when his sensor operator called out in alarm. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy spikes throughout the system. Multiple installations are powering up simultaneously." The tactical display erupted with new contacts. What had appeared to be routine space infrastructure was revealing hidden weapons systems. Asteroid mining stations unfolded into gun platforms. Innocent-looking communication satellites sprouted missile launchers. Even the space debris seemed to be moving with purpose. Impossible, breathed Veltar. How did our scans miss all of this? Zexthara felt a chill of recognition. He had seen this before, centuries ago, when the Zerathi themselves had been the ones facing a superior enemy. The humans had been preparing for this day, hiding their true capabilities behind a facade of primitive technology. Evasive maneuvers, he ordered as energy readings spiked across the human positions. All ships combat formation. The first human attack came from an unexpected direction. The moon, which had appeared to be nothing more than a dead rock with a few landing sites, suddenly blazed with directed energy weapons. Massive particle beams lanced out across space, targeting the Zerathi vanguard with impossible precision. The beam struck the destroyer's searing talon amidships, and Zexthara watched in shock as the ship's supposedly impenetrable shields collapsed instantly. The hull, made from materials that could withstand direct hits from plasma cannons, began to dissolve under the alien energy. "What kind of weapon is that?" demanded Veltar as alarm klaxons echoed through the bridge. Before anyone could answer, more attacks erupted from hidden positions throughout the solar system. Jupiter's moons revealed themselves as heavily fortified weapon platforms, launching swarms of missiles that moved faster than anything in the Zerathi arsenal. The asteroid belt came alive with gun platforms that had been disguised as space rocks. "Sir, we're losing ships," reported the tactical officer. "The enemy weapons are bypassing our shields entirely. Some kind of exotic matter beam that destabilizes our hull plating at the molecular level." Zexthara felt the blood drain from his face. Exotic matter weapons were theoretical even to Zerathi science. How had these primitive humans developed technology that his own empire's greatest minds could barely comprehend? The answer came in a transmission from Earth, broadcast on all frequencies with crystal clarity. "You wanted to know what makes us different? We've been preparing for you for 5,000 years. 5,000 years. Zexthara's mind reeled. That was longer than the Zerathi Empire had existed. What species planned for threats across such vast timescales? Another salvo from the lunar installations claimed 2 more of his cruisers. The human weapons didn't just destroy ships. They made them cease to exist, reducing matter to its component atoms in a cascade of exotic energy. "Sir, the humans are transmitting technical data about our ship designs," called the communications officer. "They know everything about our technology, our weapons, our defensive capabilities. How is that possible?" "Unknown, sir, but they're using that knowledge to target our weak points with surgical precision." On the display, Zexthara watched his supposedly invincible fleet being methodically dismantled by an enemy that shouldn't exist. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were demonstrating technological superiority that defied everything he thought he knew about galactic civilization. A new voice cut through the chaos, speaking perfect Zerathi with an accent that sent chills down his spine. "Admiral Zexthara of the Sovereign Decimator. We know who you are. We know what you've done. We've been watching your empire for a very long time." The Admiral's 4 hands trembled as he recognized the implications. The humans hadn't just prepared defenses. They had been studying the Zerathi Empire, learning their methods, preparing countermeasures. "Impossible," he whispered. "How could you have been watching us? You only achieved spaceflight decades ago." The human voice carried a note of grim amusement. "Did we? Admiral, you're about to learn that everything you think you know about humanity is carefully constructed fiction. We've been among the stars far longer than your species has existed." Another wave of exotic matter beams swept through his formation, and Zexthara watched as the pride of the Zerathi fleet began to die. But the most terrifying realization was yet to come. If the humans had been hiding their true nature for so long, what else were they hiding? The answer would come soon enough, and it would shatter everything the Zerathi Empire thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. Director Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display in the buried command center beneath NORAD, her coffee growing cold as she watched the impossible data stream across multiple screens. Hundreds of massive objects had appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. "Confirm the readings," she ordered, though she knew her team had already checked 3 times. The objects were too large, too organized, too obviously artificial to be anything natural. Dr. Martinez, the facility's lead astronomer, looked up from his workstation with barely controlled panic in his eyes. "Ma'am, these readings are off the charts. The largest ship is over 15 kilometers long. They're all emitting energy signatures we've never seen before. Chen felt her stomach drop. For 30 years, she had run the Deep Space Monitoring Division, a classified program tasked with watching for exactly this scenario. Politicians had called it a waste of money, scientists had dismissed it as paranoid fantasy, but she had always known this day would come. Humanity was too young, too noisy, too obvious to remain hidden forever. Estimated time to Earth orbit? She asked, forcing her voice to remain steady. At current velocity, approximately 18 hours, came the response from Lieutenant Colonel Williams, the military liaison. Ma'am, I need to notify the Pentagon immediately. Chen nodded, her mind racing through protocols that had never been tested outside of simulations. Do it, but keep this compartmentalized for now. I want confirmation on their intentions before we trigger a global panic. The massive screens around the command center showed various angles of the approaching fleet. Each ship was a work of terrifying beauty, all sharp angles and glowing energy conduits. They moved with purpose and precision that spoke of advanced technology and military discipline. Ma'am, Dr. Martinez called out, we're detecting scanning beams. They're mapping our entire system. Every satellite, every station, every piece of debris larger than a baseball. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't first contact or a peaceful exploration mission. This was reconnaissance for invasion. The methodical way they were cataloging Earth's defenses told her everything she needed to know about their intentions. Her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted call from the Secretary of Defense. Within minutes, she was briefing the highest levels of government on humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. And it wasn't going well. How certain are you that their intentions are hostile? Asked President Morrison over the secure video link. Mr. President, they're conducting military-grade reconnaissance of our defenses while approaching in battle formation. This isn't a diplomatic mission. The president's face was grim. What are our options? Chen had been dreading this question. Honestly, sir, our conventional military capabilities are essentially useless against technology this advanced. However, we do have some assets they might not be aware of. For decades, black budget programs had been preparing for this possibility. Project Prometheus had reverse-engineered recovered materials of unknown origin. Project Looking Glass had developed theoretical weapons based on exotic physics. Project Aegis had constructed hidden installations throughout the solar system, disguised as routine space infrastructure. Can we communicate with them? Asked the Secretary of Defense. We're trying, sir, but they haven't responded to any of our transmissions. They seem content to ignore us while they complete their scan. On the displays, the alien fleet had spread into a more aggressive formation. Long-range sensors showed weapon systems powering up across multiple ships. Whatever these beings were planning, they would make their move soon. Ma'am, interrupted Sergeant Torres from the communication station. We're receiving a transmission. It's not directed at us. It appears to be internal fleet communications. Chen hurried over to the station. Can we decode it? The AI is working on it now. The mathematical structure suggests a complex language, but there are patterns we can identify. Minutes passed in tense silence as quantum computers worked to crack the alien communication protocols. When the first partial translation appeared on screen, Chen felt her blood run cold. Intimidation protocols. Demonstration of capabilities. Destroy one of their cities. Offer them the choice, and the fragments painted a terrifying picture. These weren't explorers or even simple conquerors. They were exterminators who had done this before many times to many worlds. Get me the president again, Chen ordered. We need to implement the Samson Protocol immediately. The Samson Protocol was humanity's last resort, a plan so desperate that previous administrations had hoped it would never be necessary. Hidden throughout the solar system were weapons that violated several international treaties, devices that could theoretically damage even the most advanced alien technology. But first, they needed to buy time. Chen turned to her communications team. Open a channel to the fleet. All frequencies, maximum power. It's time for humanity to make its voice heard. The message that went out was simple but defiant. This is Earth. We know why you're here. We know what you've done to other worlds. We're not like the others. For the first time since detecting the fleet, Chen allowed herself a grim smile. These aliens expected to find a primitive species cowering in fear. Instead, they would discover that humans had spent their entire history preparing for war, even against impossible odds. The fleet's response came 12 minutes later, not in words, but in action. Energy signatures spiked across their formation as weapon systems reached full power. The demonstration was about to begin. Chen activated emergency protocols that would disperse humanity's leadership to hidden bunkers around the globe. Whatever happened in the next few hours would determine whether Earth's children would live as free beings or slaves to an alien empire. She looked around the command center one last time, then gave the order that would change everything. Activate all Prometheus sites. Prepare for immediate implementation of the Samson Protocol, and someone get me Admiral Fletcher. It's time to see if our secret weapons actually work. 3 weeks after the Battle of Seoul, Director Chen stood in the newly constructed war room buried beneath the Pacific Ocean. Holographic displays showed the state of the galaxy in real time, and the picture was both encouraging and terrifying. Status report, she requested as Admiral Fletcher materialized via quantum entanglement communicator from the flagship Prometheus, now orbiting the former Zarathi capital world. The Empire is in complete collapse, Fletcher reported. Without central command and communication, their remaining fleets are operating independently. Most are retreating to fortified systems, but 17 separate commanders have declared themselves the new emperor. Chen nodded grimly. This was exactly what they had predicted. The Zarathi Empire was too large to simply disappear overnight. Instead, it was fragmenting into dozens of smaller kingdoms, each potentially as dangerous as pirates and raiders. What about the liberation operations? Better news there. Operation Exodus has freed 47 slave worlds in the past 2 weeks. The populations are greeting our forces as heroes, and several species are already providing valuable intelligence about Zarathi technology and remaining strongholds. Dr. Martinez looked up from his analysis station. Ma'am, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Andromeda system. It's unusual. Chen walked over to the communications array as the transmission resolved into a clear signal. The face that appeared on screen was humanoid but clearly alien. Scaled skin, multiple eyes, and breathing apparatus that suggested a different atmospheric composition. Greetings. People of Earth, the alien said in accented but clear English. I am researcher Kelneth of the Valorian Republic. We have been monitoring your conflict with the Zarathi Empire with great interest. Chen felt her pulse quicken. Another major galactic power was making contact. This could be good news or a disaster. Greetings, researcher. What can we do for you? The question is what we can do for each other, Kelneth replied. The Zarathi Empire has been our enemy for 2,000 years. We have fought 3 major wars with them and dozens of smaller conflicts. Your destruction of their command structure has given us an opportunity to reclaim territories they stole from us generations ago. Admiral Fletcher leaned into the transmission. Are you proposing an alliance? More than that. We are proposing to share information about other threats in the galaxy. The Zarathi were brutal, but they were not the only danger. There are machine intelligences in the galactic core that view all organic life as a contamination to be cleansed. There are energy beings in the far rim who consume entire civilizations for sustenance. The galaxy is far more dangerous than you yet realize. Chen exchanged glances with her senior staff. They had always known that defeating the Zarathi would only be the beginning. Earth's rapid emergence as a galactic power would attract attention from other forces, not all of them friendly. What do you know about our capabilities? She asked carefully. Kelneth's expression shifted to what might have been admiration. We have been observing your species for approximately 500 of your years. Our long-range sensors detected the quantum signature of your deep space installations, but we could never determine their purpose. We assumed you were another Zarathi client species conducting secret weapons research. And now we realize you were preparing for exactly what happened. Your strategic planning capabilities are extraordinary. Most species react to threats. Humans prepare for threats that don't yet exist. Lieutenant Williams stepped forward. Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from across the galaxy. 43 different species are requesting contact with Earth. Some are offering alliance, others are requesting protection, and a few are less friendly. Chen felt the weight of galactic politics settling on her shoulders. Earth had wanted to remain hidden until they were ready. Instead, they had been forced to reveal their capabilities by eliminating the Zarathi threat. Now every power in the galaxy knew that humanity possessed technology that could destroy empires. Researcher Kelneth, she said, We appreciate your offer of cooperation. However, we need to understand the broader political situation before making any commitments. Of course, perhaps a meeting would be beneficial. I can arrange for a diplomatic summit on neutral territory. There are several species that would benefit from human expertise in threat elimination. The transmission ended, leaving the war room in contemplative silence. Dr. Martinez was the first to speak. Ma'am, the quantum analysis of that transmission suggests their technology is comparable to ours in some areas, superior in others. They're not primitive clients looking for protection, which means they want something from us specifically, Chen mused. Admiral Fletcher, what's the status of our strategic reserves? All Prometheus facilities are operational and ready for deployment. The Canterbury's design has been replicated in 17 additional ships, and the new Dreadnought-class vessels are entering final testing. If we need to project power across the galaxy, we can do it. Chen walked to the massive display showing the current galactic situation. Zarathi territories were marked in red with areas of ongoing rebellion highlighted in blue. But vast sections of the galaxy remained unknown, marked only with question marks and sensor shadows. Ma'am, called Sergeant Torres from the long-range communication station. We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Core. It's strange. Define strange. The signal is coming from approximately 26,000 light-years away, but it's arriving in real time. Whatever sent it is using technology that bypasses the speed of light entirely. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. Real-time communication across galactic distances suggested technology far beyond anything Earth had developed. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was artificial, speaking in perfect mathematical harmony. Attention, biological entities of the Sol system. You have demonstrated capability in the elimination of organic empire structures. The machine consensus requires your services. The room fell silent. Machine consciousness was theoretical in human science. The idea that artificial intelligence could evolve beyond the need for biological creators. The fact that such entities actually existed and were now contacting Earth suggested they had attracted attention from forces that made the Zarathi Empire look like children with toys. This is Director Chen of Earth's Planetary Defense Command. What services do you require? The elimination of biological empire structures disrupts the natural order of galactic civilization. The Zarathi served a useful function in preventing organic species from developing beyond acceptable parameters. With their removal, biological contamination may spread unchecked. You will restore order. Chen felt her blood run cold. The machines weren't offering alliance or cooperation. They were giving humanity orders, expecting Earth to become their enforcement arm against other biological species. Her response was calm, but carried an undertone that every human in the room recognized. The people of Earth don't take orders from machines. The artificial voice continued as if she hadn't spoken. Compliance is not optional. You will restrict biological development to acceptable levels or face corrective action. This communication constitutes your final warning. The transmission ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence. In defeating the Zarathi Empire, humanity had apparently inherited their role as galactic enforcers, whether they wanted it or not. Chen looked around the room at faces that reflected her own grim determination. Well, people, it looks like we have a new enemy. Time to show the galaxy what happens when someone tries to give humans ultimatums. 6 months after the ultimatum from the machine consensus, Director Chen stood in the observation deck of the UES Prometheus as it approached the coordinates where Admiral Zexathara's fleet had simply vanished. The search for the missing Zarathi ships had become humanity's most urgent priority. Over 200 vessels and their crews had disappeared without a trace during what should have been a routine prisoner transfer to the rehabilitation facilities on Europa. No debris, no energy signatures, no distress calls. They had simply ceased to exist. Sensor readings? Chen asked Captain Morrison, who had survived the battle and now commanded the most advanced ship in Earth's fleet. Nothing unusual in local space, Morrison reported. Whatever happened here, it left no conventional evidence. But the quantum resonance detectors are picking up something strange. Dr. Martinez looked up from his specialized equipment. Ma'am, I'm detecting quantum scarring in space-time itself. Something fundamentally altered the fabric of reality in this region. The pattern suggests technology that operates outside our understanding of physics. Chen felt the familiar chill of facing the unknown. In the months since Earth's victory over the Zerathi, they had learned that the galaxy was full of horrors that made the Empire look benign. The machine consensus was just one of several threats that viewed organic life as an infestation, to be managed or eliminated. Could this be related to the machines? She asked. Unlikely, Martinez replied. The quantum signature is different from what we detected in their communications. This is something else entirely. Admiral Fletcher's image appeared via holographic link from the bridge. Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the Valorian Republic. Researcher Kelneth says it's urgent. The alien appeared on screen, his scaled features showing clear distress. Director Chen, we have a significant problem. 3 of our research stations in the Omega sector have gone silent. Our long-range sensors detected the same quantum disturbances you reported in the Sol system. Chen's suspicions crystallized into certainty. Something is hunting ships across the galaxy. Do you have any idea what we're dealing with? We have theories, Kelneth said reluctantly. Ancient Valorian texts speak of entities that exist between dimensions, feeding on the life force of organic beings. We always considered them mythology until now. Interdimensional predators, Dr. Martinez whispered. That would explain the quantum scarring. They're not destroying ships. They're taking them somewhere else. Captain Morrison turned from his tactical station. Ma'am, if that's true, then the missing Zerathi fleet might still be alive, wherever they are. Chen made a decision that would define humanity's future role in the galaxy. Prepare a rescue mission. If there's even a chance those prisoners are alive, we have a responsibility to find them. Director, Admiral Fletcher protested. We're talking about risking our most advanced vessels to save enemy soldiers who are planning to enslave our species. Admiral, we're talking about our principles. The moment we start deciding which sapient beings deserve to live and which don't, we become no better than the machines that want to manage us. The next phase of the mission required technology that pushed even human engineering to its limits. The quantum tracking array designed by Dr. Martinez could theoretically follow the dimensional scarring left by the entities, but the process would require the ship to partially phase out of normal space-time. If the calculations are wrong, Morrison warned, we could end up scattered across multiple dimensions with no way home. And if we do nothing, Chen replied, we lose any moral authority to lead the coalition forming. Against the machine consensus, the phasing process began with a sensation that every human on board described differently but found equally disturbing. Reality became fluid, with the ship existing simultaneously in multiple dimensions. The crew could see overlapping versions of themselves, ghostly images of what they might have been or could become. But the destination they reached defied description. The ship materialized in a vast space that was neither vacuum nor atmosphere, where impossible structures floated in defiance of physics. The missing Zerathi vessels hung motionless in the void, their hulls covered with crystalline growths that pulsed with alien energy. Life signs? Chen asked, though her voice sounded strange in the altered space. Confirmed on multiple ships, reported the sensor operator. Zerathi life signs, but changed somehow. Enhanced, maybe? The readings are unlike anything in our databases. The first boarding party returned with a report that would haunt their dreams for years. The Zerathi crew members were alive but transformed. The crystalline growths had merged with their biology, granting them new capabilities while slowly draining their life force to feed entities that existed partially outside normal reality. Admiral Zexathera himself was found on the bridge of his flagship, still conscious but fundamentally altered. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from multiple dimensions simultaneously. You came for us, he said, and Chen heard genuine surprise in his transformed voice. After everything we intended to do to your species, you came to rescue us. That's what civilized beings do, Chen replied. They help each other, even former enemies. The rescue operation revealed the true scope of the threat. The dimensional predators had been feeding on organic life for millions of years, creating vast breeding grounds in pocket dimensions, where they slowly consumed entire civilizations. The Zerathi fleet was just their latest acquisition, but the rescue also revealed something else. The transformed Zerathi crew members had gained insights into the predator's nature and weaknesses. Working together, humans and Zerathi developed weapons that could damage entities existing across multiple dimensions. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships phased in and out of reality, while firing quantum disruption beams that tore holes in dimensional space. The Zarathi, their biology enhanced by alien crystals, served as boarding parties to plant dimensional bombs inside the Predator's feeding structures. When the pocket dimension finally collapsed, sending both fleets back to normal space, the threat that had haunted the galaxy for eons was finally eliminated. But the cost was significant. Many of the Zarathi crew members did not survive the transition back to normal reality. Admiral Zexathera, one of the few survivors of the transformation process, approached Chen as medical teams worked to separate alien crystals from Zarathi biology. "Why?" he asked simply. "Your species could have left us to die and eliminated a potential future threat." Chen's response would become a cornerstone of human galactic policy. "Because that's not who we are. We don't win by becoming monsters. We win by being better." The news of the joint human-Zarathi victory against the dimensional predators spread across the galaxy within days. For the first time in millennia, former enemies had worked together to eliminate a threat to all organic life. The machine consensus sent another ultimatum, demanding that humanity cease interfering with what they called natural selection processes. Earth's response was to begin construction of the largest fleet in galactic history, crewed by volunteers from dozens of species who had suffered under various forms of oppression. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just fight for themselves, they fought for everyone who couldn't fight back. 1 year after the rescue in the dimensional void, Director Chen stood before the Galactic Liberation Assembly, representing over 300 species that had joined humanity's coalition against the machine consensus. The assembly hall, built in the former Zarathi capital, buzzed with the sounds of dozens of different languages as species that had been enemies for millennia worked together for survival. "The machine consensus has issued their final ultimatum," Chen announced, her words translated instantly by quantum communication arrays. "Submit to their management protocols or face what they call biological sanitization. They've given us 30 days to respond." Admiral Zexathera, still bearing faint traces of the crystalline scars from his transformation, stepped forward to address the assembly. His presence as a reformed enemy-turned-ally carried weight with species that still remembered Zarathi oppression. "I have spent my life conquering worlds in the name of empire," he said, his voice carrying across the hall. "I thought I understood power, understood dominance. I was wrong. The humans have shown us something far more powerful than conquest. They have shown us unity." The past year had transformed the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. The joint human-Zarathi rescue mission had inspired former slave species to rise up not just against their oppressors, but to actively help each other. The Valorian Republic had shared their advanced medical technology freely. The insectoid hive clusters had contributed their expertise in quantum engineering. Even the reclusive energy beings of the Outer Rim had emerged to offer their knowledge of interdimensional physics. Dr. Martinez approached the central podium with a data tablet containing humanity's response to the machines. "The good news is that we've located the Machine Consensus Central Processing Core. It's a massive structure in the galactic center, surrounded by automated defense systems that make the Zarathi fleet look like patrol boats." A ripple of unease passed through the assembly. The Zarathi fleet had been considered invincible until they met humanity. "The bad news," Martinez continued, "is that destroying it would require a coordinated assault involving technologies from every species in our coalition. And even then, our success probability is only 67%. Chen took the podium as murmurs of concern echoed through the hall. 67% isn't good enough when failure means the extinction of organic life in the galaxy. So we're not going to attack the processing core." The hall fell silent. After a year of preparation, countless species had assumed the plan was a direct assault on the machine stronghold. "Instead," Chen continued, "we're going to give them exactly what they want. We're going to submit to their management protocols." The explosion of voices from the assembly was deafening. Representatives leaped to their feet, shouting in languages that the translation systems struggled to process. Admiral Zexathera himself looked shocked. Chen raised her hand for silence. "Let me finish. We're going to submit, but on our terms. The machines want to manage biological civilizations to prevent them from becoming threats. They've never encountered a species that voluntarily limits its own expansion. Captain Morrison, now serving as humanity's military liaison, stepped forward with a holographic display showing the Coalition's proposal, the Galactic Biological Preservation Treaty. Every species in our coalition agrees to self-imposed development limits, managed reproduction rates, and restricted territorial expansion. In exchange, we maintain complete autonomy within those limits. The machines get what they want, Dr. Martinez added, guaranteed that organic species won't develop into galactic threats. We get what we want, survival and freedom within reasonable boundaries. Researcher Kel Neth of the Valorians was the first to understand the true brilliance of the plan. But the treaty includes provisions for collective defense against external threats. If the machines violate the agreement by attempting to reduce our populations below sustainable levels, then every species in the coalition is automatically released from all restrictions. Chen finished. And we implement the Prometheus Protocol. The Prometheus Protocol was humanity's final gift to the galaxy. Hidden throughout every major star system were quantum communication relays that could coordinate instantaneous responses to threats. If the machines ever broke their agreement, 300 species would simultaneously deploy weapons that combined the best technology of every civilization in the coalition. The vote was unanimous. Even species that had been bitter enemies agreed that survival trumped pride. 3 weeks later, the machine consensus received the galaxy's formal submission to their management protocols. The artificial intelligences, operating on pure logic, accepted the terms as an efficient solution to the biological contamination problem. But they failed to understand the psychological element that made the treaty so effective. By voluntarily accepting limitations rather than having them imposed, the organic species had maintained their dignity and unity. The coalition grew stronger, not weaker, as former enemies worked together to develop new technologies within their agreed boundaries. Admiral Zexathera, now serving as the coalition's strategic advisor, made a comment that would become legendary. The humans have accomplished something that 3 millennia of Zerathi conquest never achieved. They've made the galaxy want to work together. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had spent centuries in bitter warfare began exchanging cultural and scientific knowledge. The insectoid hive clusters developed new art forms influenced by mammalian emotional expression. The energy beings of the Outer Rim began experimenting with physical forms to better interact with matter-based species. Chen, now bearing the title of Galactic Coordinator, established her headquarters on Earth, but spent most of her time traveling between worlds, mediating disputes and fostering cooperation. The planet that had once hidden from galactic civilization became the beating heart of an unprecedented alliance. 5 years after the first Zerathi ship had been detected at the edge of the solar system, Chen stood again in the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching as the newest members of the coalition, a species of crystalline beings from the far spiral arm, participated in their first joint military exercise. Status report, she requested from Captain Morrison. All coalition fleets reporting ready, Director. If the machines ever decide our existence violates their protocols, we can deploy unified response forces to any point in the galaxy within 6 hours. Chen smiled as she watched former enemies practicing coordinated maneuvers with precision that would have made the original Zerathi fleet envious. And the treaty compliance? 100% across all member species. Population growth within agreed parameters. Technological development focused on quality of life rather than military expansion. Territorial claims stable and respected by all parties. Dr. Martinez approached with his latest report. Ma'am, I've completed the analysis of galactic civilization patterns over the past 5 years. Remarkably, overall quality of life has increased by an average of 47% across all coalition species. It turns out that cooperation is far more efficient than conquest. Chen nodded, remembering the day when humanity's greatest fear had been detection by hostile aliens. Now Earth stood at the center of a galactic civilization that had chosen cooperation over competition, unity over domination. The machine consensus continued to monitor the galaxy from their fortress in the galactic core, satisfied that the biological contamination problem had been solved through proper management. They never suspected that the organic species had turned their limitations into strengths, their restrictions into bonds of mutual support. As Chen watched the stars through the observation port, she reflected on the lesson that humanity had taught the galaxy. Sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemies, but from convincing them to become your allies. The Zerathi Empire's deadliest fleet had indeed disappeared without a trace, not through destruction, but through transformation into something far more powerful than any empire had ever been. The galaxy had learned to work together, and in doing so, had become truly unstoppable.